I think what we have found repeatedly over and over again is that if you don't get the foundational basics right, nothing else really matters. This is a quote from John Wooden, one of the most famous coaches in basketball or just sports history. That the same topic, champions are brilliant at the basics. So this is an article from 2014, and in fact, this is the exact slide I'm pulling from a 2015 talk Megan and I gave on this topic of brilliant at the basics. Just like Tank was asking, our own employees kept asking, can you just walk us through like your routine? What are your basics? So in 15, we started by sharing this article. It was around the NBA, and they talked about how NBA players, so this is professional basketball, they would do well in their career and then they would get stuck. They would hit these points in their career where they can't advance further, and they were sort of burning out, not sure how to get better. And so this one individual went and created a boot camp. It's like a training camp for professional basketball players. And the boot camp was focused on just the fundamental basics of basketball. Footwork, dribbling, just the real basic stuff. And what they talk about in the article is that a lot of individuals succeed based on some different type of strength. So obviously in basketball, it might be athleticism. It could be sure just skill in shooting the basketball. And in the process, that disproportionate strength gets them to this level of success, but their foundational layer was never built in. And so by going back to the basics, you see people who are in the pros, the best in the world when it comes to basketball, improve again and start to grow when they went back to the basics. So I'm sure you hear this all the time. Teams, coaches, when things aren't working, let's go back to the basics. Brilliant at the basics. Once again, slide from March 2015, the false assumption. There's an assumption that you should know how to manage your own emails, calendar, time, how to say no, how to learn actively through iteration, how to resolve conflict with other adults. These are assumptions made in us as adults, right? The first time you start to check email, let's just assume you figure out how to do that, right? The first time you actually use your calendar, even to-do lists. And you have to recognize in the information age, this stuff just got a lot more complicated. There's just more emails. Calendar now, there's shared calendars, and there's there's crazy things there. To-do lists. I just remember my mom had to-do lists. There's 6 things on a list. Now there's these shared lists, and you can post others lists. And it's wow. I've rarely met someone with a to-do list shorter than 20. And I think 20 is kind of conservatively low. The truth is, as adults, we lack the skills because there was never training provided in this arena. This then becomes the greatest area to fake it, right? So you start to have to be able to be good at these things even though you're not. We talk about maintenance. Brilliant in the basics is a level of maintenance. In the world of machines in the 20th century, if you ever found a machine like this, you know where it's heading, right? It's heading to bad places. If you bought a really nice car, you bought an expensive piece of machinery, you know if you don't maintain it, it's gonna putter out, maybe in 6 months, maybe a year. But a nice car, you're doing oil changes consistently, you're cleaning every dust bunny that's there, you're going for inspections maybe more often than you need to. When you maintain the machine well, the number one asset in the 20th century, you get the most out of it, shelf life. Well, the new machine, the new asset, people. If you're tired, you're not so happy, and you're not maintaining the people side of things, guess what? They're the same thing as machines. Maybe a year, you will putter out. Put it this way, you will not get optimal performance. If I could change the pictures, I'd show you the inside of a Ferrari when it's well maintained, and I'll show you an Olympic athlete. When you maintain correctly, you will see a difference. And here's the part, I mentioned this earlier, you can do everything right and still lose. In fact, winning is that hard. You can do everything right and still lose. You see this in games, in Olympics. They train everything perfectly, and yet winning can oftentimes be a flip of a coin. But if you have healthy habits, you increase your chances of winning. Likewise, if you have unhealthy habits, you increase your chances of losing. Noise to signal. In the information age, the age of data and knowledge, noise is the challenge. There is so much noise. There's so much noise in not only the emails and what you should do and advice and everything that you can think of, mentoring, coaching. You are I'm sure 3 days we did our fair share of bombarding you with noise. How do you reduce the noise in order to increase the signal? The goal, that's what matters. Because if you do that, you can go think, you can make smart decisions, you can make something that did not exist. By definition, innovate. Most of us have a ton of noise, right? Static, noise, whatever you want to call it. You're unable to find the gold amongst all the noise. There's so much noise you can't see the signal, but we still have to go perform. We have to go think. We have to go make smart decisions, decisions that can mean the lives, the jobs of other people. We have to go make something that did not exist. We have to go innovate, and that's a requirement to survive in the 21st century. So we have to do that. That's what the outcome they want to see, but we're not controlling the noise to signal ratio. So this is a handwritten slide, because we made it literally hours ago. 21st century building the basics, we're calling it BIB for short. 5 levels, and then we create a level X. I'm sure we can come up with more and more levels. We're going to spend this time talking about level 1 and 2. And the reason is this. The further levels almost don't matter if you can't get the foundational levels right. So level 1 is going actually technical. So if there's nothing you took out of this academy and there was nothing that you will adopt, I hope it will help you at least better manage your emails, manage your calendars, and your to-do list. And if we did that, hopefully there was some value to be able to then build on and move to level 2, which is the beginning of what we call with others. If you remember the beginning of the academy, we talked about the biggest challenge in the 21st century is that innovation is no longer a solo sport. You have to do it as a team sport. You have to play nice with others. The words of Nancy Schulman from preschool. Learning how to play nice with others. So we have with others 101, with others 201, 301. But we're giving you copies of all this stuff too. So level 2, which is on my mind. It's an actual email exercise. I'll show you some examples that occurred even in the last 24 hours. The notion, I'll go into more detail. Then once you master that, you can actually begin the process of level 3, which is TP. If you remember on Wednesday, we talked about the most important takeaway, the Westmore story, right? Expectations. Who drives your expectations? The person you go to for counsel. Not the 5 people, not the 10 people, the one person. You find that training buddy, the training partner, the buddy system, the gym buddy. The rest can take care of itself simply by getting number 3 done, except 3 won't work till you get 2 done, 2 won't work till you get 1 done. You see, these are all, the sequence does matter. Then comes level 4, which is around learning to become a coach and learning how to give advice and be able to see that. Then comes level 5, which is building training grounds for this, the practice grounds, the space. Then we jump to level X because what we found, over the years, people walked away from Academy, the one takeaway was, oh my God, I need sleep class. Or like, wow, eating healthy for 3 days makes me feel like a different person. I feel more energized. I got to go and do that when I go back home. I need to work out more. I need to join a spin class. To be very honest with you, this does not pay off till much, much later. This is a long-term payoff. Now, the higher you go up, you'll find, although the payoff is tiny, meaning 1 to 2% difference in someone, the higher up you go, that can be a significant return for a tiny degree change. Early on, it'll make no difference.
You mean in your career, like the more junior you are in the career, less experience. That's what
Career, it doesn't have to be junior, but just like, the example I think of top of mind is when I was in college, I'm not sure it really mattered that much whether I pulled an all-nighter or I slept in 16 hours. I kind of did roughly the same in wherever I went to class. But when you get to levels where the subtlety of your decision making becomes more important and nuanced, the difference, even of half an hour extra sleep class, can make a difference between the right and wrong choice. You'll see this in parts. This pays off much later. This is a thing that pays off later, not in the beginning. So people always flip it and do it by mistake, which we did too for a while. The PEM starts with physical. When it comes to highest ROI, doing the least possible thing, you got to start on time. And this is important because we always talk about return on investment. We're all limited on money. We're all constrained on capital, money, time, resources. So when someone says, you know what, to succeed, you got to do these 16 things, these 12 things, I hate that. Because in theory, that's great. In practice, it's nonsense. The reason why I say it's nonsense is because God forbid I pick the wrong 12 amongst the 12, the wrong 2, the wrong 4, I won't see return. So guess what happens? 6 months later, they kill your budget. The need to pay off and show return is so high. Unless you're an amateur sport, all professional sports, somebody's going to demand ROI.
And most people do exercise, nutrition, sleep well enough on their own. It's not as if you're not still taking care of yourself and exercising. Maybe you're not getting enough.
There's extreme
that's-
cases. There
yeah.
are people who are not sleeping at all, right? And so the difference in this, but we're not talking about the extreme cases, the majority, right? The majority of the cases, 51% or more. That's by definition majority. The order matters. If you do it right, you get payoff. If you don't, you will be frustrated and you will start to argue with data, research, and philosophy why it's important, but it will not pay off. And so the sequence matters. So we always try to strip down to what matters least, and then you build on. So, does this sound familiar to you? You have 600 new emails, your inbox is exploding. If you have actually a phone where you forgot to turn the sound volume off, it keeps dinging every time an email comes in or a text comes in. The calendar meetings, you look at it, what's Monday look like to you? Oh my God, right? I remember the days when I thought 6 to 7 meetings a day was a lot of meetings. That was like the most you could see. I have now met people who have 17 meetings, 20-something meetings in one day. They have figured out a way how to have standing meetings, 12-minute meetings, 8-minute meetings. They have figured out a way, virtual meetings, to have so many. They actually pride themselves on who has the most meetings in a day for how many days in a row. And have you ever gone to bed on a Sunday night or any night, look at the next day or the week and just do one of those, oh my God, right? And I'm sure you feel like, who the hell put those meetings on, right? It's awful, right? I hate my boss. I hate whoever's driving these meetings, right? So you become a slave to this thing called a calendar. You almost switch, someone had a virus, boom, disappeared. Awful. Email's a slave. God, I have to check this thing, right? So I heard some countries are making rules so that emails can't be used. I'm like, God, we're not babies. You don't have to create rules like that. Like, you should be able to figure out how to navigate through this noise. To-do lists, right? The whole to-do list issues and challenges. We're going to walk you through. Most of the slides actually come from 2015 to March, so it hasn't changed that much. But what's fascinating is, even on the calendar side, when we dug into some of the leaders first, who had a slave to calendar feeling, we will look at Tuesday. Tuesday is like a brilliant average day. Monday's always a little bit catch up and all kinds of weirdness. Tuesday's a brilliant average day. We'll look last week and say, let us just go through an audit with you. Every meeting on there, and let's mark it, red if you have no control, someone else is pressing it on you. And then yellow, right, if you actually are the driver of that meeting. Most senior people, when they talk about the slave to the calendar, we find that roughly 80 to 95% of the meetings was actually in their control. Meaning they could have made the decision to take the slave that's holding onto their throat and actually say reduce it. Now you find the flip side. I'm not senior, right? I have the flip side, right? Like I've got barely any control. The thing we had mentioned about the straw that broke the camel's back, the notion of a dial, you'll be surprised that whole surviving state, thriving state, the ability to remove one recurring meeting changes it. And even if it's 5 to 20%, which by the way, if you do the math, right, 20% of a week is one full day. Okay? If you can dial down by 5 to 20%, you might love your calendar back again. You might not feel like a slave.
They're ready to hear it. They're ready to hear it.
Right.
Tell them.
So let's go to email, level 1. Sorry, well, slower. 2015 presentation, the first part, just not to delay the answer here, but there's a lot of millennials who will talk about, you know what, you know how I solve this? I stopped using email, right? I have this new technology, it's called Slack, right? I have this new thing called WhatsApp, right? I just text instead. I'm on these massive text boards. So instead of the email noise, I'm now using text, right? So you got text messaging, and this was in 15 we wrote this. Instant messaging, I pick up the phone or someone does it, no, I just go face to face, right? I just try to go face to face, and everything is face to face only, right? Like, if I call them up or I go face to face. Well, if you think about the notion of a killer app that is non-intrusive, the beauty of email versus text versus phone call versus a face to face is that I get to choose when to digest that information. I get to choose when to respond. You know the problem in text, don't you feel the need to respond right away? Because it kind of like disappears on your screen. So then they're like, oh yeah, there's technologies where you can actually go and trace back as far as 1,000 conversations. You want to go digest 1,000 conversations to find the signal, to find the goal? Email actually is the least intrusive, on your own time to digest, on your own time to respond. And I cannot tell you, when we went to visit Whidbey Island, we saw the weekly meeting, and we said 80% of this meeting could have been removed just by using email correctly. Updates done in the right way. So this is a slide, just to prove my point, pulled up very recently. 2017, this is the internet in 1 minute. How many things happen? You're seeing a lot of stuff in here, right? Facebook and Snapchats and Google searches. Take a look at this. Emails. The volume, this is not received, this is email sent. The volume of emails sent in 1 minute in 2017 is 156 million emails. The average email always has more than one person, average, right? Because of this terrible thing called email groups, right? Which has the ability for you to hit like thousands of people, if not hundreds at once. Which we like to feel like we need to belong to every email group in case we miss out on information, right? 156 million emails, look at the difference. The next biggest thing is text messages. Text messages is 1/10 of the volume of 1 minute of emails. Then the next thing is search. You just go down. You see, nothing comes even close still in terms of volume. But the emails received, so this is what's sent, is going to be 2, 4, maybe 10 times greater than that number. So if you're seeing 10 times more emails than texts, and then you look at everything else, it's almost like some factor of 3, 4, 5 to that. You add the receive part, it's 10 times 10. 100 times more noise is coming from email. And it is the thing that is the killer app that's preferred and used. Even though all the theories that it's going down, no, it's still growing this big in 2017. And the problem with this, most emails, if you're not quite sure, feel like priority A. Now you might blame, once again, the slave bosses, the slave spouse, I don't know who it is that you feel slave to, but I'm trying to figure out through this muddle of this much volume of noise, what is priority A? So this is the same slide we used in email, and the most important thing, I'm just going to try to go this a little faster, you can see the details, is actually building this email rule on the left. You can do it in almost any email program. And the email rule is this. You're going to let the computer help you split the emails into 3 buckets. The emails where my name shows up in the to line. The emails where my name is CC, which is someone saying FYI, or everything else is BCC. BCC, right? When you get spam, usually you're BCC'd, right?
Those are the email groups.
But email groups is what shows up here. Every email group, and like anything in life, if you can take any giant hornet's nest of noise and chop it up even to 2 pieces, less 3 pieces, you can see the signal faster. The ones that require my attention, my response, show up in the to line. The ones who actually FYI, all of them show up together in the CC line. And everything else shows up in BCC. The speed that you can read through this then, when you know, right? Now, like I said before, it will go down. Someone will say, never respond to me. I look and I'm like, but you BCC'd me, like amongst everything else. You will train them over time. That if you need my attention, just like, you know, I'm sure in the military, if they don't get your attention over email group, then they try directly. If not, maybe they try to jump many steps. They text you, then they actually call you, then they call somebody else to go find you, right? Things escalate rather fast when it's important. In today's day and age, there is no such thing as, you know, you can't reach that person until they get home and check their voicemail, you know, on their answering machine. It is no such thing. They will find you. They will find you so fast. So if it's important, my name should show up in to line. If it's kind of like an FY or CC, so this sounds crazy, but for the last, I don't know, how many years now, 10 years, I never get enough emails. I know you don't believe me. You do not believe me because my ability to read the to is rapid. The CC I digest every now and then throughout the day, and the BCC is like kind of like, it's almost like, you know when you have that Facebook moment? That moment of like, I just need to read some nonsense? You're trying to, that's my BCC. Like, you know the moments I'm like, oh, what's going on and all the stuff? But when you see it all together, you're in different mental states. The problem is if you're in this higher alert, I gotta find where the gold is mental state, and you mixed in 2 CCBC all together, you're always living in like stress. Doesn't work so well.
I think the tip is that only a few times throughout the day will we actually check the CC, and then I almost don't look at the BCC until nighttime, when I'm home, like after put kids to bed, because it is a different mindset when you're seeing all these emails, updates and different things, and we might miss something, but we've trained people over time that if you need us and it's that important, we would be in the two, it would be sent to us directly, right? At least to CC, if that's the case, but BCC, it has a lot more of the group emails and updates.
I can't remember what IDK stands.
I don't know.
Don't know.
So this is
okay. Oh, yeah.
when you don't know what to do. You know, you get an email and you read it and you digest it, but you actually don't know how to respond.
Yeah.
This is
This is really good.
This in here,
Yes,
actually.
this is really good actually, because how many things do you read and you're like, I don't know the answer. I have to go find the answer. I want to say something, I don't know. So once again, you bifurcate who matters a lot. People who are not a priority, have different reasons why they're not, right? It could be total strangers on the internet. It could be some alumni randomly coming through school saying, can I get your time? You slow it down. Because remember, the thing that occurs, just like conversation, emails, trail of conversations, the faster you respond, the faster they respond back. And you think, well, I can just fly through it all. How many times have you gone through your inbox and clear it down to 0, which I think no one does nowadays, but if you do, how fast it piles back in. The more you send out, the more that comes back, right? Because everybody has these crazy rules of like, you know, my rule on emails, when you open it, I respond right away, or like, I mean, and somebody's bound to have that. So like you'll see, this is like a never-ending game, and there are people, you deliberately want to slow it down. There are people, I literally do not want you to reach out to me. And you'll know over time, because you won't get a response back fast. Now, since you're in the academy, you know this for real. I saw your email, I read it. I made a deliberate choice to slow down the response. I made a deliberate choice to at least wait 24 hours, sometimes a week, sometimes as much as several weeks. And then when I'm having my Facebook moment, like kind of like I need a bluff, I'll go through and look at these unopened emails from like a month back. And some people hear back from me like 4 months later. It's deliberate.
But you write that down to get back to them.
No, I don't write it down. I just have it unopened. I just file through. I mean, it's like, you have those moments you just want to, brain dead, right? I'd be sitting on the bus. I'm waiting for someone at the restaurant because they're late. I'm like, oh, that was from 3 months ago. I got to respond to that. I'm like, maybe today I'll do it. Like,
Show them the next page. I don't know email.
Okay, so the high priority thing, this is actually really important too. I can't tell you for people that are important, to let them know you read the email. The acknowledgement of the email, and I hate sharing this because now people will use it generically, right? If you say this, you better plan on this, right? I'm Barry, but I'll get back to your note. You better mean it. Because if you don't, over time, you build a brand that you don't mean this, that you are a liar, and as you do that, everything you say next will not matter, right? So your credibility will matter, but the people I intend to, like a lot of people have written all kinds of stuff, said, you know, I saw your note, in fact, I have a thought, but you know, like I'm gonna get back to you, and I tell them why, the context. But people who are strangers, I don't tell them why I responded late. I don't need to explain. But the ones that matter, I explain. I give context of this. And I tell them I'll get back. And that alone is incredibly helpful. So these are just the email rules. I mean, you can see this. It's how to set the rules. Outlook, Gmail, all of them have rules you can create like this. Automatically filters them into different inboxes. So you have to create a CC box, a BCC box, and just goes. And even on your phone, the beauty is this. When you open your email on your phone, only one box takes primary view. That box, of course, is your inbox. Which means if it's important, it flips through the inbox, I'll see it. The rest of it, I see it at random times when I have free time. This is kind of a neat thing. So we're trying to come up with fun ways because if you actually saw some examples, it's horrific. It's a version of Leadership 360, even worse. What I mean by that is this. You ever get an email, and you read it, and your blood pressure just goes boom, right? What do you want to actually say, right? And everyone teaches you, right? I've heard even the most important button is the save as draft button. Well, who here has hundreds of drafts? We found one employee here, they've been here for, I don't know, 5, 10 years. They had more than 1 draft email per day on average. So it was like 2, I think, average emails per day, including weekends as a draft. The draft folder exploded. they never sent the emails. Save as draft, there is a place for it. I think generally speaking, I think it's a hornet's nest of problems that you're going to go down. I'm saying there is a place for it, just be careful it's not overused. This idea, so we call it ASDF. The ASDF rule. So I'm talking about some of the more advanced stuff here. The ability to go and email, so I just put very
So the one
important
you
person.
mean if you click, shows
Right?
the ASDF.
So by the way, ASDF is your keyboard.
Yeah.
ASDF.
Your email will
If
not
you
send.
ever sent an accidental email where you're like, you know, blah, 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 and then you're like, ah, shit, I hit the send button. If you type in either the to CC or BCC box, ASDF with the keyboard, it won't send. The email won't send because it doesn't recognize the address. So this, no matter what you type and how hard you type and angry or whatnot, it won't send because it doesn't recognize the address. So any email that I get that's to an important person or anything that even not important that gets me angry and emotionally charged up, you'll see instantly, like I'll open the thing, hit respond, ASDF. And then as we even talk,
You might be thinking Shirley wrote that example. I did. I was just thinking, what would be something extreme that I would never say? But like, you know that when you get that visceral response where you just, it's actually saying if you can get some of that raw feeling out right then and there in the email of viscerally how you feel, how you want to respond, there's value in punching that out, but a lot of not good value if you just
you can
send
never
it right
send
away.
an unedited draft.
But it's to get out of this mindset of I'm going to save as a draft for later. I'm going to get back to it later. By the time you get back to it later, you've lost a lot of the emotion and the goodness that comes with whatever you wanted to say. You'll lose a lot of it. So it's to create it's not a draft because it's open, it's live. It just won't send. But so then this is why we put that little ASDF
It's the
step.
same thing basically as how many times have you watched things in life, maybe with your kids, like, oh, I wish I had the phone on, or I wish I had the video camera on. That snapshot, right? Your emotion is a very powerful tool. It is so hard to even understand. I think we're at the cusp of understanding what it's really doing, but it's your supercomputer. So your intuitive general response is actually filled with gold, but it has some rough edges, which is the editing part. But if you don't paper it, have you ever talked to someone? This is what happens a lot of times in our TPing session. We'll be talking, and then I'm gonna be like, you know what I feel like? And I'll be like, open up a browser and start responding. But tell me as you talk. And what happens is this: it comes out like, you know, visceral, like visceral vomit. But of course, it's not sending because ASDF stopped it. You look at it, and do you know how many times you look at it and be like, wow, that's actually really good. Remove 2 words, like maybe physically, and like, or you know, like just something minor. You're like, that's a very firm no. It's not beating around the bush. It's just the point. Otherwise, you know what tends to come out in most of these emails? Oh my God, and now I'm trying to think of how do I look to them and they look to me, and what do they say last? Maybe, like, you start drafting, I'm gonna respond to that one later, maybe when I have more thought. Like, how many things have you planned to go back to later, right? The procrastination notion, and you never get to. And by the time you open it up, you know what you do? What was that about again? I remember it made me angry, I think, but I'm not quite sure. You like all the knowledge you had instantly, you forgot. And then people do always, well, I didn't even see the email. I'm like, you lied, you opened it, you saw it. That means it gave you a reaction. Do you know the speed, the split-second reaction that we get? It is so fast. You just start practice enough that being able to put it out on paper. And as you do, you'll see the value of that visceral reaction is gold. But you need to be able to take a screenshot of it. And that's what this ASDF lets you do. With some guardrails so you don't hurt yourself. Because you think it's hurting other people. It's hurting yourself, trust me. Go into calendar. So the calendar, the most basic thing that we found so helpful is this. All weeks start on Mondays, they end on Sundays. And I think it was a rule that Microsoft Project Manager had built years ago, because if you run out of time, you can take Saturday and Sunday, this is like CEO speak, right? Saturday and Sunday to get the job done. Right? So although the technical calendar for most walls start from, I think it's like Saturday to like Friday, like, or Saturday to Saturday, the real truth of how we work and operate as human beings is Monday to Sunday. One of the best examples is news. You know, do you read last week's news? It's crazy. If it's in this week, you'll still read it. But last week, that's last week. Sometimes it can be like a day apart, but it's like last week is last week. So the week starts. The problem that occurs is this. We tend to take meetings in our calendar based on if it's open or not. So if you ask for a meeting, I'm like, you want to meet on Tuesday? I have an opening here. You ask for a meeting on Wednesday? Okay, here. Like, so you just start filtering in without any deliberate thought, whatever people ask. Versus, you can actually create a very simple, deliberate rule. Monday to Wednesday is where my core work will go. Thursday, Friday is my exploratory work. Right? So in the early days, we used to say revenue, Monday to Wednesday, Thursday, culture. Now people could just take this and they would literally, do full 2 days of culture. It's not the point, but the point is this. If you split your calendar this way, one of the best things is this. In business, we have a lot of this, business development requests. Business development request is a fancy word for something so kooky, and someone's got some pitch that's so grandiose, and 99.9% of it's going to result in nothing but a waste of your time. That's usually what business development is in reality. If someone has a business development thought, I'm like, how about like Thursday, if not Friday? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is sacred. It is time to make progress on core things you need to get done. And the reason why this is beautiful is this. If I'm going through the week and you know what, I'm behind goal, right? I'm behind goal, I cancel my Thursday meetings. I move them into Friday, I move them into the following week, Thursday. But if you do this haphazardly, here's what tends to happen. You come to work on Monday, that tiring weekend, right? I gotta catch up, what movies you watch, what'd you do. You're catching up for like half the day, I gotta get to work, right? By the time you actually gin up to get to work, it's like, oh, lunchtime, after lunch we start, right? Whether it's sales calls, whatever it is, then you wait till after lunch, and then you're like, God, day's almost over, why don't I just prepare myself to get going as of Tuesday? Tuesday comes in, well, emails exploded, someone else had an emergency, now I'm dealing with other stuff, someone asked for a random meeting, they came in the hallway, before I know it, I'm like, the longer you wait, whatever goal that matters in your core thing, you're losing days. So what happens when you lose days? And you have less and less days in the week to accomplish what oftentimes people get measured on is weekly goals. If you have no time left and you need to hit a goal, well, the thing that happens to all human beings is what we call desperation. You know what happens when you're desperate? You swing for the fences. There's no such thing now, and this is where the 17 meeting days come in. This is where, like, you know what? Even though you shouldn't make a decision, I got to catch up for the days I lost. I mean, when I see salespeople doing sales calls, this happens a lot, where they wait and wait and wait, they have to hit their weekly goals starting on Thursday or Friday. Oh my God, are they awful? In desperation, we all make bad choices. When you do it this way, you feel less desperate. And I can't tell you how awesome it is to sit on an exploratory meeting when you know you killed it or did enough, at least for the week, on your core stuff. So this simple separation makes...
I think somebody asked the question somewhere in the academy around how we balance what we would consider revenue versus culture, what you might have as mission versus collateral duties. This is the framework and the guidelines we gave our team years ago, which was just some guardrail. Doesn't mean it's always the case, but even Wyatt Academy, we used to only run half-day ones, was on Thursday, was because we wanted to put it to not interfere with Monday through Wednesday, which is the fuel of how we make money and how to keep everything alive. So, but that was just a great framework. So even from a mindset point of view, when we see some of our employees working on, planning the Halloween party on a Monday afternoon, it's like, bad idea, right? Monday afternoon is an important day to advance the business, to move things forward in their core responsibility. Plan the Halloween party on Thursday, Fridays. So it just kind of gets everybody in the same mindset.
Now remember, every rule is created to be broken. But if you break a rule all the time, it's not a rule. You need to know when to break them. So people are like, oh my God, well, Charlie Kim told me. No. I'm like, no. This person you want to meet is an important who. And the only time they're around is on Monday. We have a call, I think, with Heather Wilson, right? She asked for Monday. Our first reaction, why Monday? We wanted to move it to Thursday, right? We wanted to move it to Friday. We asked Daryl. Daryl looks at me, are you kidding me? Like, so we're doing it on Monday. There are exceptions you will make. You will make exceptions for who matters.
I think the advanced tip we had here on Monday was more that we use Monday morning throughout the afternoon to advance the business, but at nighttime, we actually use Monday as our late night as a pretty consistent ritual and routine, where we know we're both babysitters Monday night, like we both make sure we're here always on Monday night. And it's kind of important because if we ever have a major project to do, Monday night is the night we both know we're going to need to get that done. If we have multiple projects, we're figuring out what are we going to get done tonight. So
What happened this week Monday evening?
Oh, So we were gonna make
This
some
is- this
tweaks
is
to the
great
opening
TP.
presentation. I think it's good enough at this point. We don't have a Brilliant in the Basics presentation for Friday. We've never taught it in the academy. It's been years. So anyway, so we actually worked on that Monday night, even
I
despite.
think this was Monday at 7 p.m.,
We also thought we were gonna have more time between now and then to
Yes.
get to finish it. We did not, so.
which is why this is blank. There's no animation.
90%.
But
It was just.
this Monday evening at 7 p.m., I had this bright idea that I can perfect the Wednesday opening presentation. Even the one I gave last week to the Marines, I had like a lot of other ideas how to make it better. Megan had a much brighter idea. We have nothing for Brilliant the Basics.
Besides
This is
the
the
big
only late night we
2015.
have, right?
Yeah.
And if we save it for Thursday night, it is going to be the worst presentation we
Can
could
you
possibly
imagine
make.
if we did
It's
after
awful.
what happened
It's awful.
yesterday? So
I
anyways,
dodged a bullet. Like, dodged a
Monday
bullet
nights are
out.
really important. We find Monday night is very consistent for us, so and most of our leaders will do the same.
But what we found is this: Monday is actually the most important day for deep thinking, critical thinking, strategic thinking. If you want to open a can of whoop-ass of stuff that you don't want to talk about, right? Monday is the day you got to do it. And what happens is this: strategy. Strategy's tough, right? People like to wait till Friday for strategy. It's around 4 o'clock. We haven't thought about strategy. Why don't we think about strategy? Do you know how well a job you do? You're exhausted. Your mind's spent. And you want to think of how to advance and come up with something we've never done before, creative and innovative? On Friday, you get lazy. Well, you don't mean to. You might be thinking, I'm not lazy ever. No. Your mind gets lazy and you look for shortcuts and the difficult stuff. I don't want to discuss that. If I bring it up, then it creates an argument. Who wants to argue on Friday at 4 of something difficult, right? We pick your children as an example. Friday at 4, you want to talk about something really controversial on them? I'm telling you, on Monday, despite how groggy you think you are, by the nature of the weekend, we all oscillate. You are sharper than you realize, but the discipline we lack is to open up the difficult stuff on Monday.
And then the other piece we have is Tuesdays. We chose, after I had my first son who's 7 now, Tuesday night became the parent night in many ways where I go home. I actually pick up my kids now on Tuesdays, but that started a few years ago. But the night we have is the parent night. So Charlie and I both Tuesday nights go home to make sure we put our kids to bed. So that's the night we've chosen to make sure we both have the same night, just to make sure that, you know, we're both gone at the same time. So this is how we operate, but a lot of the employees in the company, especially who have kids, will have almost like a parent night. We didn't call it anything.
Bath
We
time
call
is
it
what we
bath
call
time.
it.
We used to call it bath time, the bath time program. It's like discipline of making sure you get home for bath time. So Tuesday night was kind of a random night. That's the night that we chose, and it's kind of stuck for us. It's called bath.
I would say it's not
Bath
random. You
night.
say there's no accidents. It's not random.
It's definitely not a Monday.
Tuesday is a brilliant night to do it. But the other part to do is do
Why
it
is it a
together.
brilliant night?
Because Monday is what people do, right? Because you know what, you miss the kids, you're with them all weekend, so you pick Monday. Monday is the day you go to advance and have the difficult conversations. Now here's the other thing people do, because we're still in the 20th century factory mindset. Since there's 2 of us, why don't we kind of divide and conquer? You take Monday, I'll take Tuesday, and so what ends up happening, you never innovate, you never collaborate. Because while one is busy, like at home with some screaming child or a fun game of Monopoly, the other person is like,
So maybe we're not even
trying to figure out.
making it fully clear, because what we find is the Monday night is what we call the unconstrained night. Tuesday night is like the bath night. We call unconstrained night. We think it's important that you have at least one night in the week. I have no idea what your schedules are like and the hours you guys work, but we find it important that one night we are here unconstrained and we don't have to get home. So we
See,
make
every
sure that it's
rule-
all set up so that we don't have to be home at least one night. Just to have the freedom to not be looking at the clock. It's really hard to be innovative and think through difficult stuff when somebody's looking at the clock the whole time.
Picture
That's
working
really
when it's
hard
going,
to do.
and
We're
you
like-
know
Yeah.
one's not paying attention and both aren't because they got to go somewhere. You can't calm down and work on difficult things, on strategy and advancing and being innovative. So that consistent night together where you can have unconstrained thinking, working time. And usually, if you get a chance to do a workout before that, you'll see it's almost like a brand new day. Believe it or not, in the evening. And then Tuesday, once again, go home together. I mean, not like as in both leave, right? Make sense? To-do list. This to-do list, this thing that you almost hate, right? People ask you, what's your priority? You know, A. That's like pretty much all of it, right? Except these 3 things. But that's like 97 A's. Too many A priority lists. And then people argue why it cannot be anything but an A. So it's just we lack the skills of learning how to go through to-do lists. So we unfortunately pride ourselves in how many things we can check, right? So be careful. People tend to also pride themselves in how many things they can check, so then they build skills and muscles of making one to-do item into 6, or putting things they've already done, or actually coming up with stuff that's just completely unnecessary, but I should add it on the list. You feel more important, you feel busy if you have long to-do lists. And then people will brag about, if I print it out, it's like 6 pages long. It's not a good thing. The longer the list, the more noise, right? The more noise, you can't think. You're going to make bad decisions on the things that's important. I love this part. A phrase we came up with and used years ago was a no equals a double yes. Every no I give means I can put a double yes somewhere else. Because that is what gives me the courage to be able to say no. So when I say no to something on my to-do list, that means something else is going to get double my attention. Now the reality is not even double. It's like no, no, no. Like 19 times to take one thing to say yes. People who come to our academy wonder, how do you do this for everybody? How do you shut down your business from running half your employees, give 3 full days? How do you do this? You're on this side of the yes. You should see how good we are at saying no. Because for every one person here, we at least said no 19 other people, if not more. That's how we can go all in. This is a diagram, the idea of diffusing your energy. When you say, you cannot do the is not, meaning you say yes to everything. This is what it looks like. And the entire thing turns out mediocre. How do you concentrate? So this was a diagram that was out there, but we find this is actually wrong. In theory, it's right. In practice, it's wrong. In theory, it looks more like this. You're dialing it down. Most things, okay is good enough. That example from Monday, our opening presentation was good enough. But I want to make it great. It's the kickoff, it's the beginning, it matters the most. Okay is good enough, so you dial it down, because every piece of energy you save in the dial down, you redirect it to win really big on something. Years ago, we used to have a thing called Project Awesome. It came from the cartoon Kung Fu Panda, right? The awesome blinding powerness of the Kung Fu Panda. The idea was every week, if every individual just did one thing awesome, didn't matter what it is, the sum total of every employee doing one thing awesome every week, despite what strategy was set, would turn out an amazing enterprise. Can you imagine? And awesome is a very high bar. If you have a low bar, it's good. I hope you're playing in the right sport. High bar awesomes. If everyone just cranked that one thing that was awesome, every week, strung together by every employee, the sum of that is a rock star high-performing enterprise. The to-do list, so we call it the CAB rule. Right? You'll see this common theme. Reduce the noise, find the signal. Most people do ABC. A is the most important, then B and C. But anything that's long, if you shorten the list, you see clarity. If you reduce noise in anything, clarity, it jumps out. So the very first thing to do, we mentioned this thing went to Millington for the Navy, on the promotion side. On the promotion board, you need to knock out the C's first, because once the list shortens, it's clear to see who the A's are. The problem is people usually do it either alphabetically, whatever comes first. The things that are hardest to figure out what to do are the B's. Right? Think of when you do compensation, promotions, everything. The people that are on the fence is where all the discussion happens forever. But you know what's actually faster than who is the best? Who's the worst? So find the C's first on your to-do list. Find the C's in your promotion, knock them off, lists get shorter. Within the shortened list, find the A's, the visceral A's, pull them out. What's remaining are the B's. When it comes to to-do lists, we don't even mark the B's. So it's CAB, but it's really CA. So you mark the C's, boom, 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 and we're making a deliberate decision to not touch that. Right? We've decided together that's not going to happen. Then comes the A's, and then we do A1. This is the Franklin Covey trick, if you've ever seen it. A1, A2. But see, we don't do C1, C2. We don't do B1, B2. It's just the A's that matter. Now, there's a short-term and long-term, which is interesting. Because to-do lists are so long with so many things. It involves, like, I got to lose weight one day. I want to find purpose, and it goes on my to-do list. These things that take much longer will fall in. I'm just using silly examples. But we have 2 lists. And by the way, these lists are paper-written lists. They're taped on our wall so we can visually see it. Because it's amazing when the list is in your head or in your own phone, it feels like static. You can't, you're like, I'm forgetting something, I'm forgetting something. But the minute it's papered, and the minute you've agreed on the priority, especially when not to do it, it frees you up to go run at it like a racehorse. So you have a short-term list, ideas, this is stuff I want to get done this week. Everything else falls in long-term. Long-term, see, we don't even rank it, but it's important that it's in our subconscious because you have to constantly chip away at this. Short-term, you attack it, you'll see you check off, and every time, remember, this is in visual sight constantly, so that we wanted to build these new offices with actual walls that had this, so people would actually do this on the walls, per office, per cube, but maybe we'll do that. But it's amazing what you do. This idea that you have to have a directional sense. This is very much the long-term list of, before we have GPS telling you everything you do, command by command, what you would do driving. This is like your map. If I want to drive from here to Boston, I need to glance at the map every now and then while driving. Nobody drives staring at the map. You need to focus on driving, which is what short-term is. But I need to be able to glance at the map, otherwise I will lose my direction. The long-term is your direction. The short-term is actually how you make progress. These two things work together, and people try to, once again, you separate, and you're finding noise to signal. I won't go into this, we're running out of time, dessert versus veggies, but there's a lot of programs that kind of get more advanced, so we'll go into future levels. We'll tell you when we cover those too, but let me skip that. This is now moving into the notion of with others. Megan said this really well just Monday. It's with another human being that makes you brilliant.
As if I'm saying I'm brilliant when I'm with you and you're brilliant because of me. Nothing, but that's how we feel together.
No, but it's true. I look back, and by the way, there's brilliant, and then, I don't know if you
And
see
then really
that.
awful.
There's confidently humble when we're together, brilliant. But there's also arrogant and insecure together, right? Both of us when we're at our worst. You'll see when you actually find the right flow with your training partner, that is how brilliance shows up. And when everyone else in the world's moving to this, if you do not work in team, if you do not lead even in team, I'm telling you, you're dead. Megan's prediction is 2020 is when giant enterprises will go out of business if they don't adopt this stuff. And if it isn't breaking at the seams already, you're a little more than 2 years away before you actually go extinct. Now you might come up with different ways to define extinct. Congress might make you extinct. Other defense groups could make you extinct. Artificial intelligence might make you extinct. I believe you will be extinct by 2020 if you don't fix this fast. So we mentioned this whole aspect of lying versus the truth. The neuroscientists, the best in the world, have said when they scanned the brains of how much energy it was taking the brain to tell the truth and lying, that's how it broke up in parts. So if you can reduce the lying, a dial, you can increase more into the truth. So the other levels, and we're just going to go to level 2 because the other levels 3, 4, 5, next there's a lot more. So I think there's something London's been piloting, which is to run a monthly, sort of like an alumni program for Academy attendees, where it can be a dial-in, you come in person to our offices, and we'll cover some of the other stuff, just one session, just on level 3, just on level 4. So we're going to go in more depth on level 2 in a second. Level 2, if you remember this movie for children, Monsters University, the monster in your head is far worse than the actual monster. If you ever watch a horror movie, the monster you can't see is far scarier, and the minute they show it, you're like, I can't believe that was it. The best ones never show you the demon. It's the same thing. When the monster is in your head, it's far worse than once it comes out. This comes in the research in psychology too. Once you're able to shine a light on the monster, it's almost eradicated. Sometimes half, sometimes more is eradicated. So, the technique we came up with, and this is literally coming from the last 24 hours, was on my mind emails. Now, some of you will read this in a second, right? Actually, don't read it for a second.
We've been doing the on my mind emails for a while, but just examples.
I'll give you examples, but before you read it, I'll have to read it. What's interesting about on my email, some of you will be like, we can't do that, that's incriminating myself or whatnot. Make a Gmail account, make a Hotmail account, make some account where no one can track you and trace it. You have to send it to another human being. So it's got to be someone you trust enough that will not use it against you and roast you. It might be your best buddy, it might be your mother. Mothers usually will never, turn you in. So like, you can pick what you want, but ideally, yours might, but ideally somebody in the arena is what you need. Be careful, because remember the whole thing with the pilots and the plane? If the pilot was sending emails to some passenger in the back, they just have to take the pilot's word for it. They're the only ones who can see through the front. Get someone in the arena, and if you can informate them, it's amazing the process, what it will do. They know. You know they can hold you accountable because they know. But the important part is for you to start practicing taking this inner monster, putting it out on paper and putting light on it. So these are 2 email examples. One's from Greg, one's from John, based on what happened on Thursday. So this is from Thursday evening. This is one of the many emails we got. So Greg sent, you guys are on my mind. I heard a glimpse from Tom, and I know a lot going on, which I can only imagine from stress standpoint. The room was uncomfortable during the Leadership 360. It reminded me a bit of the Oboe Time in Academy. It's another horror story from Red Hat. Oh, my fault, that one too. And I can see a few people reading your feedback, so I felt I needed to say something afterwards, but wasn't sure what. In those moments, I feel defensive for you/us. Is always a risk of going there in front of everyone, and we do learn from it. So immediately afterwards, a couple of attendees asked me about it. I shared the context of the intent, which Megan touched at the end, was different than what the expectations were. It goes on. This is one from John Hilliard. It went to Tom. Tom felt that he just give us a heads up of what he's seeing. One of the Eggshell Academy topics that came up, one of the attendees indicated that he thinks there is a disconnect between our talk and action. I think he's very skeptical that Charlie will listen to feedback and that people would really give him feedback. I would guess it was because of the vibe he gave out on Leadership 360. When you get muscled, and by the way, this isn't the first one they wrote. See, when they get used to it, the pattern of sending these, and once again, the first one we say, do it by end of day Monday. End of day Monday. The next one, do it at least by 4 o'clock Eastern Time Friday. We're in New York. Because then it gives people a chance to digest it. So 2 minimum, if you get into this habit of doing this, you'll see that whatever noise and static you have in your head is constantly being chipped away at. You can think. You can actually process, absorb. Because the holding onto this is literally holding onto this monster. And all the research shows when the monster's in your head, it is an internal terrorist that is growing by the day unless you find a way to get it out. So the act of doing this sets you up to become a good TP. Being TP'd with someone who is hiding stuff from you, not telling you, avoiding, and there's all kinds of eggshells you can feel everywhere. I mean, it is maddening because what you will do too then is kind of match it par for par. So as you're both going in line, it's just like you're like, at some point, you're like, what are we actually talking about? Right? I'm talking about this hypothetical person that said this hypothetical thing to me that, I mean, it's like, it goes maddening. Why TP is so sacred is because there's a lot of things there. We have a lot of advanced topics, the veggies and dessert, how to use the walls of your office or even your cube, the visceral email and more depth of that, the power of visceral feedback, having a place to have no filter, politically incorrect talk that no one could actually hold you accountable for. The latest thing that we did, we could probably run a whole hour, and that is called the IQ, the Innovation Quadrant. It solves those things that you feel and have said over and over again, individual as a self, it's impossible, why bother? Now, you might never say that because you're trained to never say that, but your behaviors, when you sum it up, will show that you actually believe in your mind, it's impossible, why bother? We got that from Pace. But there are ways to solve it, and it takes 4 quadrants to help drive that. So that's a whole other thing. Level 4, situational workshops, Tank and team and many others who've come from Academy. The 2 things they adopted first and foremost over the years was actually TP and situational workshops. After all the academies you ran for thousands of different leaders and in hundreds and hundreds of organizations, by default, when we threw 70 things on the wall, we looked at what they adopted, they always took away TP and situational workshops. The other 2 levels we found, sorry, I don't want to go back that far, had to get done though to do these well. But they've still found ways to do it. But even situational workshops, I mentioned, go into levels themselves. Then comes the people org chart. And you know, when you talk about the collateral work or the cultural work, once again, even that can be grade levels. Tom and Greg own recruiting, Albert and Chris own onboarding. So even within this work, that's a lot more important than some of the social events. So you have the ability to underwrite risk at different levels. So you don't need Mark Brown owning the social event, but maybe he owns something that is actually higher up in the list to test and have a practice run. Level X is the mind-body work, and especially with body first, because this is the whole oblivious, aware, not adjusting. It's a lot of detail here. We went through all of it, but we plan to have sessions, if you're interested, where we'll just go deep dive into every one.
We'll do a few questions for Q&A in a minute. We're almost done.
I love this slide. I took a picture after someone else's presentations. Rituals push us to act. Habits pull us to act. So meaning, it's called a ritual because you're not used to it. You have to push yourself to do it. But once it actually becomes ritualized in you, semantics here, but it becomes a habit. The habit now, once it's set, it's almost harder to not do it. If you do on your mind emails every, two a week, you do it long enough, you'll see the week you don't do it, it feels odd. If you go work out consistently, try to not work out, it feels like I don't feel quite right. You're not quite sure what. You'll see the power of habits. It will help you succeed because it will not take more energy to do it. In fact, it'll take more energy to not do it once you build a habit. This came from HBR from Jim Lear. This is how the human being is made up. We actually are more like machines than we realize. The yellow part is our willpower. This is our New Year's resolution. We write our list and we promise ourselves. Less than 5% of people actually follow through. The majority of what we are, the 95%, happens in our default, our unconscious. If we design it and build habits, rituals in this, it happens automatically. The example I always use is shampoo, conditioner. It's in the exact same place in your house, right? You almost know, you can almost go lights off, know where it is. Brushing your teeth. If you don't believe me, try this tonight if you really want. After you brush your teeth, turn around and throw your toothbrush over your head. See how you feel in the morning when you have to find that toothbrush. Do it again. Do it every time. You will see we put certain things in the exact same place because when you do, it does not take more energy. Once you've actually built it into the machine of you, you can then add on more. But until you do, trying to add on more will throw the whole thing haywire. Someone, this is over Twitter, I said, coal turns into diamond, but only with incredible consistent pressure. Reject the pressure and you stay as coal. I have no idea who this person is. Says, yeah, but it might also take you 1 billion years to change. So what's the point? We're iterating on techniques and technologies to get optimum human change to occur in 90 days, 13 weeks, or 1 quarter, right? It's way more realistic timetable. Not 1 billion years. So here's what we learned. We're all diamonds in the rough. We need the coaching to become what we can be. It's not going to happen just by default. So this is something that was interesting. So Peter Borman, the guy we mentioned before with the walking thing you did, upgrading who you are, the ritual, the habit building, takes 90 days. There's a lot of research, 3 weeks, this and that. It's 90 days. We went to Paris Island, spent 3 days there. They do it 12 weeks, the transformation of a human being. 12 weeks. We sat with the CG, the head of the base, and asked them, do you know why it's 12 weeks? They're like, we tried everything. We tried 30 over now. We tried 4. 12 was the number it took. And we said, do you know that the human body, it takes roughly 90 days. 90 days, 13 weeks is 91 days, because it follows the same pattern of our red blood cells. Our red blood cells regenerate every 90 days, which means, by the way, in the very first 4 weeks, your body is used to a new ritual by only 1/3. 2/3, the majority of your body is used to the existing ritual, so it fights it, rejects it. Have you ever gone on a diet and gained weight? Is that one of the awful things? You're like, I cut out carbs, I cut out soda, and I feel worse, and I'm gaining weight, I'm bloated, everything's going wrong. Because your body is going through this adaptation, negative ROI phase. You have to push past these 4 weeks. Because then the first signs of success show up in 4 weeks, and this is where people stop by accident. I got it. It's now part of me. No, it isn't. You ever meet doctors, you take antibiotics, you start feeling better almost in days? That Z-Pak, right? It's 5 days. 2 days, I'm like, I'm cured. They say, always finish your antibiotics. And the reason is this, because if you don't finish, you will not taste the sweet elements of success at the level you need to, and this is what will keep it in your system. The full cycle. Now, the one last part I'll add is this, goal setting. People get this always wrong, right? If you do better, you raise your goals. There was an article years ago we had seen about a guy who talked about wanting to get stronger by doing push-ups. By the way, I apologize for being over here, but you guys slept too long, which is why. So with that, I'm that, right? So push-ups. He made a rule for himself to get fit, do push-ups. He decided every time I go to the bathroom, I will do 2 push-ups before I go to the bathroom anywhere. It could be at like a bar, nightclub, it's going to go pee, push-ups on the ground, and no matter where he is. Well, as he started doing, he got stronger. So he upped the goal to 5. Then he upped the goal to 10. Then he upped the goal to 20. Well, when he didn't have time to do 20, guess how many he did? 0. This happens all the time to us. So remember, it's 2 times a week minimum, not maximum. You can always do more, but hit the goal. We had the same thing in fitness. Everyone has to check in twice a week. You don't have to, but in teams, your team loses because of you. To compete in 5 different teams for fitness. Work out minimum twice a week. Well, every fitness expert told me, Charlie, you can't do that. It's not enough. You got to work out at least 4 times a week. 2 is just not enough. I said, but these are like engineers. Some of them never even hit the gym once in their life. It's not realistic. So I'm just going to stick to 2. Well, over the years, people started, roughly almost every employee in a company is going to the gym regularly twice a week, and you start to track how many, and we start to average higher. So they said, we got to up the goal. So I was like, bright idea. Let's up the goal to 3. And suddenly all the results started to plummet. As soon as you saw you couldn't hit 3, you went 0. People gave up as soon as they saw they couldn't hit the goal. And now once again, when you have 2 times a week, why Monday is so important, when you hit your goal on Monday, you have 1 in 4 chances to hit your goal. If you miss that Tuesday, you have 1 in 3 chances. If you miss that, you have 1 in 2. What happens when you miss Monday? You got to hit 50% of the remaining days. Then when you miss Tuesday, you have to hit 2/3 of the remaining days. If you miss Wednesday, you got to hit 100% of your days. Monday, you must hit your goal. Because that means that as it put 1 notch in for your goal, it's easier to hit, and when it's easier to hit, we always tend to hit it more often. Twice a week minimum. Do that for 13 weeks straight. And when people say something could happen, maybe someone gets sick or something goes wrong. So I say, okay, fine, it's like a diet. You get 1 hour. You do more than 1 hour, your clock resets for 13 weeks. You have to start the whole process again. So be careful how you use your out. Some people say, I'll use it this week to start. No, no, no. You save that in case something goes wrong. But if you don't do something 2 times minimum for 13 weeks straight, you haven't even really tried. Because once you do, you'll see in week 14, trying to not do it is actually harder. And it becomes more automated. So I'll end with this slide before we ask questions. So I had the fortune of learning, I skied early, and then I had ski lessons from this guy. His name is Billy the Kid, Olympic skier. So it was New York Stock Exchange brought all these tech CEOs, invited us to kind of impress us, and they set up all these ski lessons and then races we had to do. So we're all competing, and it's some like ESPN 8, like there's some show where these random, ski races. So, and they give you an Olympic skier to coach you, right? So we're in a small team of like 3 other people. So I'm with Billy the Kid. I've never really heard of him, but I'm like, this is great. So I'm like, Billy, I'm pretty good skier, but I want to win this race, so teach me, the tricks, right? And he does this. He's like, Charlie, I want you to stand like this. I was like, okay, now what do I do? When you're waiting for me to catch up to you, when you're waiting for everybody else, stand like this. When you're in the ski line, stand like this. Everywhere, stand like this. Every time you put on your skis, stand like this. And I was like, okay, what else do I do? Do I duck, tuck, move my hips? What is it that makes you win the race? He's like, I just want you to practice standing like this. And I remember I got so fed up, I was like, this guy's useless. I gave feedback to the New York Stock Exchange. You got to get a refund. This is awful. This is the only thing he taught me the entire time, right? Full day of training with an Olympic skier. Well, I learned later on that when you're skiing, this is the stance you need. But it's so unnatural, especially when you're turning, that until you get used to it, and he said, practice when it doesn't matter, so it's like breathing. You do it automatically. That's how you actually become good at skiing. You have to practice this, practice, until it's so natural, it's like breathing. One of the academies, I was searching Billy the Kid, and this picture popped up, and not only did I feel embarrassed, ashamed, but I was laughing because I was like, this is exactly what he taught us 1 full day. And I thought he was awful. And I realized I was the one that was awful. He was teaching me value, and I just rejected it. So, practice 13 weeks in a row, twice a week minimum. It will become automatic. It'll be harder to stop.